It is the last Pigskin Frenzy in the month of April. And you're thinking right now and looking at me, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, just imagine me wearing this. But if you're watching me on YouTube and seeing me on YouTube, you're thinking, dude, you're wearing a hoodie and it's about to be May. Well, here in the Midwest and in Central Illinois, it takes a little bit, just a tiny bit, for it to finally start to warm up. The weather fluctuates. It goes up and down, cold and hot and cold and hot. But if you're like me and like if you're from the South, it's always hot down there, right? And it's always like the coolest it gets in December for Christmas. It's like 70 degrees. Here, it's very cold. So it's different up here. It is different. Central Illinois is different. Illinois is different. But we're going to get there. We're going to get to the warmer weather. It fluctuates. But I am wearing a hoodie on the last episode of Pigskin Frenzy in the month of April. May will be Thursday, and we are going to rock and roll with some Pigskin Frenzy because we are going to finish up some spring results here within the next couple of weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, listening on Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage and some spring football coverage presented by me. Now, after watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagrams at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow, let the pages there. You're going to get episode updates, news and highlights from across college football, trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, the website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you will find all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. You'll find a home and about me page. Learn more about me as your host for this show. You will find a contact info down below. Name, email, question. I'll answer it on air or off air if need be. There's also the platforms page. All the platforms I just mentioned. Go and click on which one's your favorite listening style of the show. There's also the store and affiliations page. More on that coming soon as we continue to regularly update the website for Pigskin Frenzy. That is www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. We're ready to rock and roll with some more spring outlooks, guys. I am so fired up. Everyone had a great weekend. They watched the NFL draft. They watched college stars become even brighter. And now we march towards this season for college football and get to see who else is going to emerge as prospects for next year's class. So, man, last week or this past Thursday, we did the group of 5. Now we're back into the Power 4, and we're going to the Big 12. 4 Big 12 teams. And the Big 12 was a conference, man. Let me go on and tell you something. It was a very interesting conference. And by interesting conference, I mean it was really competitive. It was really, really hard to see who was going to, take a leap over the other. It seemed like each and every Saturday and each and every weekend that there was a team leaping ahead of the other. It was really ultra competitive until Arizona State showed that, hey, we were the top dogs of the Big 12. And we're going to talk about some Arizona State here entering the spring or how they did in this spring in a little bit. Arizona State, BYU, UCF, and Colorado are all on tap today in the Big 12. You're going to love who we have on tap for Thursday for spring results. You already know we're going by the spring outlook schedule, and we're doing our spring results on this. I'm so excited to talk about the Big 12 today, though. Let me tell you and just recap and give our grades on these springs. And let me go on and tell you something. We were critiquing. We were very I wouldn't say critiquing or critical per se, but on some of these we were a little bit critiquing, I guess. We were on 2 of them at least. I was great, and I was impressed with 2 teams, and on the other 2 teams, I was like, they were good, but are they going to take that championship leap in the fall? We'll see. But this is what we just have with our spring stuff. It's content, it's great episodes, and we really don't know until we see them play on the field each and every weekend in the fall. So we're going to see. We're going to figure it out. So that's just how the cookie crumbles when it comes to spring results. But without any further ado, let's get right into our spring results. Let's talk about Arizona State, the defending Big 12 champion. They ended up surprising everybody. If I told you that Arizona State would have been the Big 12 champion last year around week 1, people probably would have laughed in my face. And the thing is, I would have laughed at anybody's face too, because I had them dead last in the Big 12 in the conference standing projections. Guys, conference standing projections, it's just that. It's just projections, right? So you never know. And that's what it was. Projections. And they showed that around mid-season. They ended up balling out and becoming more of a threat. And I keep saying this analogy, but they can become a threat. They beat Utah. Okay, they're a legit threat. And then, you know what I mean? And as they go on and on and on, they beat like the likes of Kansas State, BYU. They end up, winning out. And you're like, okay, they're legit. And then they end up going to the Big 12 championship, beating Iowa State badly, if I add. They beat them badly. They end up getting a bye in the college football playoff and end up going to the college football playoff. They just didn't even think about Arizona State, Big 12 champion, and college football playoff all in one. It blows my mind because I really didn't think they were going to make it, but they did. And that's just the way of college football works, especially nowadays, I guess. You just never know, right? So with that, though, right? With that, you think, okay, what's going to happen here? They ended up playing Texas. They gave Texas the game that probably the best game of the college football playoff. Honestly, it's probably the best game of the college football playoff. It was insane, intense. Texas was all over them in the first half, up and really until the early part of the fourth quarter, and then early to mid or almost to mid fourth quarter, around like the 9-minute mark of the fourth quarter, Arizona State starts firing back. Cam Scatterboot puts the game on his back, and they end up coming back and bringing it into a double overtime game. It made for an exciting finish. Double overtime. Texas wins off of Sam Leavitt throwing an interception, and Texas moves on, and Arizona State came that close to beating Texas, and they end their season in the Peach Bowl in the College Bowl playoff quarter final. So behind that, now that Cam Scatterboot's gone, you lose a couple of guys on that team. What's it going to look like now? What's everything going to look like now that they are moving on to the spring and getting ready for the fall? They're the defending Big 12 champions, coming off of a college football playoff appearance and a Peach Bowl game appearance. What's it going to look like heading into the spring, and what's it going to look like heading into the fall that these guys are freaking legit, right? They are legit, and they're going to be a top 25 ranked team, at least in my opinion. And if they're not, something's wrong by week one. At least in the AP poll, something is wrong. So what I wanted to see from the spring mainly was the full-on development of Sam Leavitt. I wanted to see if he can take that lead to being a championship level caliber quarterback, because yes, you had other players behind him, but take on that level, kind of like Maddox Madsen I said last Thursday. Sam Leavitt becoming a game-changing quarterback, a game-changer quarterback. He was a good quarterback and he made some good decisions, but can he be that guy for this team? Right? So that's one. Who's going to have the depth of the running back position behind Kanye Udo? What's it going to look like there? It's a bunch of things. What's the defensive line going to look like? What's the defense going to look like in general? Everything coming together, right? And how are they going to look physically and mentally after a good 2024 campaign, but just fell short in the college football playoff? Well, without any further ado, let's dive into their spring results and what I liked and what I did not like from them. What I liked was the quarterback room. I really did like the quarterback room. Honestly, I think the quarterback room is bright, and the future is bright at the quarterback spot for Arizona State. Sam Leavitt leading the charge was amazing during the spring. He made some good, accurate decision passes. He looked more experienced and more comfortable than he did, as he was entering last year, right? He looked really, really good. I like the quarterback spots there, and I liked Sam Leavitt's development to lead this team into 2025. So that's number one. I really liked the quarterback spots. Number two, I really am high on Kanye Udo as their starting running back. I like the running backs in this. They looked really, really good. Running the ball, being patient. Kanye Udo is the clear-cut RB1, but I really did like how well they ran the ball as well and how well they looked there. If you want to talk about, the defensive line, I really like the defensive line. I think that in 11 on 11 and on one-on-ones, the DLs beat out the OLs, right? I think the defensive line group for Kenny Gillingham's team is really, really solid, and they have the potential to be one of the best in the Big 12. I really do believe that. I really like the performance of the defensive line. Here are the things that I was concerned about and what I didn't like. There's really no clear-cut spot at the nickel spot for the secondary. I want to see what's happening there. The battle's still going on, yes, but there's really no clear cut. I think there's room for the development at the nickel area in the secondary for Arizona State. I really do. I want to see who's going to step up there, and I'm concerned about that aspect of it. I want to see who's going to be the top guys at receiver, who's going to be a playmaker at wide receiver. There was really no clear-cut favorites there. I'm kind of concerned about that heading into the 2025 year. And that was one of my concerns as well. I think that offensive line a little bit, the rotation there needs to get more in sync. I think that they got the right people. They just got to get more in tune. That's all it is. They just got to get more in tune. And it's more like a mental thing, right? So I think it's not really major issues, but things that I didn't really necessarily liked about Arizona State spring, but it's not really too bad. It's not really enough to okay, that's going to change my grade completely, right? So you got head coach Kenny Dillingham back for this team, offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo, defensive coordinator Brian Ward, all back heading into the 2025 season for Arizona State. My overall grade and my spring result grade for Arizona State is an A. Not an A minus, not an A plus, just an A. I think it's the suffice grade. I think they did really good this spring. They looked prepared. They looked mentally prepared, and they look physically prepared. I think conditioning, they look solid. They look like a strong unit, and they look tough. I think the things that I think really Sam Leavitt was my big highlight, his development and how much better he's getting. I think he's got a chance to show a lot of people in college football this season that he's one of the top quarterbacks, in the land, right? In the land of college football and in the sport. I think that Kanye Udoh is a good, solid, I wouldn't say replacement because it's hard to replace a Cam Scatterboo, but he's a good, solid replacement for to lead this team in the running game and the Sun Devils in the running game of the Big 12. I think the defensive line showed me a lot as well. I just think the only two concerns is one, the nickel spot in the secondary, and then I think the offensive line being more in touch, and also who's the top playmaker at the receiving core. I think that's what I want to see from this team. I think other than that, Arizona State looks like a team that can be feared heading into the 2025 season. I really do believe that. They're the defending Big 12 champions. You obviously got to watch out for them. They're going to be an automatic, watch out for them. Do not underestimate them. Along with the Iowa States, who we didn't do a spring outlook or result on, but Iowa State, BYU is also up there as well. So you got some teams in the Big 12 that you watch out for, but Arizona State is looking like they're not going away. And Kenny Dillingham is ready to keep the process going of building Arizona State into a powerhouse, and that's what he wants. So watch out for the Sun Devils heading into 2025. I thought they had a really solid spring. So that's all I'm going to say about Arizona State. I'm high on them, and I'm curious to see if they can get those things cleaned up a tiny bit. Other than that, it's not really major. My spring football result grade for them, for Pigskin Frenzy, is a grade A for Arizona State. So that was Arizona State's spring result. Let's move on to BYU up in Utah. BYU, who we all thought was originally going to go to the Big 12 championship. They were undefeated pretty much up until November. Up until November, they were undefeated, and they were rocking and rolling. And they were doing solid, if you ask Kalani Sitake, if you ask him, head coach for the BYU Cougars, that this team could have gone to the Big 12 championship, he probably would have said yes. He believed in this team, and there was a lot of good about this team last year. Kansas State was a prime example. They blew Kansas State out of the water in Clearwater, in Manhattan, Kansas, right? So, it blew them out of the water, right? So, I don't know. It's just BYU was a team that they were starting off really hot, and then once everything happened, right, you're thinking to yourself, like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, whoa. What happened? Like, Kansas rolled around. They ended up beating Kansas. They ended up, Kansas ended up beating them. They ended up losing to Arizona State. They ended up losing games, and you're thinking, oh, man, you're right. They got some tough games on their schedule this year. Iowa State's a real big showdown there. We'll see how that goes. But after losing those games, you're thinking, what could have been for BYU? BYU could have been a team that probably could have entered the playoff Big 12 champion, could have entered the playoff and been a team that you just don't really want to underlook, right? So they enter that. They ended up playing Colorado in the Alamo Bowl because he was like, okay, why are two Big 12 teams are playing each other? You got to look at the rules. It's a Pac-12 legacy thing, and Colorado was in the Pac-12. So BYU ended up playing Colorado, kind of a conference bowl game technically, but you know what you mean. They ended up blowing out Colorado and ended the season on a bright note. They ended up blowing out Colorado and ending the season on a really, really strong note and looking towards the future, right? You're thinking, look, this is what BYU could have been against Kansas, against Arizona State, against teams that we didn't need to lose to and play close games against, like Utah, right? We could have blown Utah out of the water. And that's what Kalani Sitake was saying. He was saying that we could have been the team in the Big 12, and then they weren't because they ended up just taking some of their foot off the gas at the very last second. Now, it's got to be all gas, no brakes. At this point, it's got to be all gas, no brakes. And I think that's the mindset that BYU has to head into for the 2025 season, but heading into this spring. So let's dive into their spring and let's talk about their spring results and what we liked from BYU. Let's just go out of the way really quick. Let's talk about what I didn't like, what I did not like. And it's kind of hard. I really want to see, honestly, and was looking forward to seeing, the type of playmakers at receiver, right? Obviously, they got their starting quarterback. There's nothing wrong with that. There was playmakers at receiver. Who's going to step up at receiving, right? Who's going to be the top wide receivers for BYU? There was no clear-cut favorite there, and I think that's what I really wanted to see there. Nothing major. They can get that figured out by fall. Defensive line is kind of backwards, like defensive line being in sync. They're physical, and that's what I like about BYU. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, but they just need to be more in sync. Other than that, like the offensive line for Arizona State, other than that, their D-line was kind of, needed to be more in sync. Other than that, those two things are the things I really did not like about BYU spring. But that's really it. And I'm going to tell you why. I think BYU's coming back. And I think BYU is going to be a better team this year probably because mentally they're strong and physically they're strong. They treated this spring like a real-life game simulation. And that was very smart on the coaching staff's part. Their quarterbacks are bright. Their running backs are wonderful. I think Jake Retzlaff is a solid quarterback. I think he's got what it takes. He's going to be their starting guy in 2025. He's going to be very underrated for this team. Retzlaff has got a really, really good arm. He's very smart, and he played like a veteran throughout the whole spring. He was really motivated. He's going to be a very underrated quarterback in the Big 12. I think that the conditioning is a concern, but other than that, conditioning is a concern, but the thing is let me just say this about this. Conditioning was a concern, some, but not too much. They were without some of their major stars, but it wasn't too bad. I think they made it through physically and tough on the right end. Like, they really were really tough. They were really tough. There was no really conditioning issues at the very end, which was good. Usually there's a lot of conditioning issues with some teams, but they made it out. They did. They made it out. And that was the perfect thing, right, for this team. So they looked physical. They looked tough. They looked mentally prepared. And they looked like they were ready to go out there and win the whole conference, right? And that's how they practiced. They were really tough, and I think that's what I really liked about BYU in this spring. Head coach Kalani Sitake is there. Offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick is back. Defensive coordinator Jay Hill is also there as well. My spring result overall for BYU is a grade A because I really liked their toughness and I like their physicality. I think that is what is going to drive BYU as a team next year to watch out for, and a team at the top of the food chain in the Big 12. And it's almost like who's gonna really who's going to really take it to us, right? Because up front, we're going to be tough on the line of scrimmage, and that's how games are won. I think that Arizona State's going to have a run for their money against BYU in the toughness department. I think BYU is going to be a very tough team to play against physically, and that's what they're trying to build on, and that's what I liked about their spring. So overall, my spring result for BYU is a grade A. That's all I really got to say I'm just praising their toughness and they're praising their mentality. I think they're mentally strong and they're physically strong, and I think that's what's going to get BYU to the dance. Jake Retzlaff is a very solid quarterback, and I think he's made some good, accurate throws, and I think that he's going to be an underrated quarterback to watch out for. So BYU, grade A is my spring result for them, and that is my spring result for the BYU Cougars here on Pigskin Frenzy. Next up, we got two more teams before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy, and that's the UCF Knights. Scott Frost is back in Orlando for this team. You're thinking, well, you had Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn ended up taking the offensive coordinator job for Florida State. He is calling plays for the Noles now. They needed a head coach. They brought back Scott Frost in their second stint. And their second stint as him as head coach. But this time it's not in the group of 5, it's in the Big 12. So I really wanted to see how everything was going to work out for Scott Frost, structure-wise and foundation-wise, because he's in the Big 12 now. It's not the Power 5. It's not the group of 5. It's the Power 4. And how everything is going to work in that end. Mackenzie Milton is the quarterback coach. His old quarterback is their quarterback coach for the UCF Knights, and that's a very interesting hire there. You got Alex Grinch as the defensive coordinator. How is that going to work? Is Alex Grinch going to revive himself a little bit at the defensive coordinator spot? You also, at the offensive coordinator, got Steve Cooper. So head coach Scott Frost, offensive coordinator Steve Cooper, and defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, along with quarterback coach Mackenzie Milton there, all on staff, and that is the coaching staff for UCF there. UCF is in the midst of a quarterback battle. We're going to get into that, and we're just going to talk about their spring in general. It was very up and down season last year. It was one of those things where we really expected UCF to kind of be one of those teams that kind of bit you at the heels and nipped you at the heels, like they were going to sneak up on some teams. It was very underwhelming for UCF. KJ Jefferson, that transfer thing, it was underrated. They're underwhelming. Like, he didn't do his best. Like, and KJ Jefferson did a lot better when he was at Arkansas, and then it just went up kind of crashing and burning at UCF. It just didn't really end up working out. Overall, it didn't work out. Gus Malzahn decided to depart and ended up going to Tallahassee. Now, UCF is looking to restart and build over and get back into it. I don't expect UCF... I'm just going to be real. Let's just be truthful. You got to be truthful. Like I said, Pigskin Frenzy is a truthful show. We have 4,900 listeners. Big thank you for taking some time every week to listen to our show, because it's a truthful show, right? I'm going to give you what I think is the truth. I'm not really high entering 2025 on UCF. I'm just going to be real. And you're going to sit there and think, okay, I guess this is one of the teams that has a lower grade, and it does. I'm not going to say it's not a C. It's not, but it's on an A. Okay, so I'm being real. You'll see which letter grade. You know what letter grade it's going to be, but it's going to be a plus, minus, or just a standard alone. You know, you're going to figure that out here in a little bit. But I'm not high entering on UCF entering this year. I think their spring was good. I didn't think it was great and phenomenal, but I didn't think it was bad. I'm just not really high on them because I don't think it's a rebuilding year. It's a rebuilding year. I think that it's all gonna fall into place heading in to 2026 and beyond. I don't think I just would not expect much in 2025. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say they're going to lose 2 games. They're going to win more than 4 or 5, obviously. I think they could be bowl eligible. I just don't think they're not going to be contend for the Big 12. Let me just put it that way. So that's my thoughts. Just take it as you may. I just don't really expect it. Now, without any further ado, let's go to their spring and let's talk about what I liked. What I liked is I like the foundation and I like the motivation, and I like that Scott Frost mentally and program wise is working harder to bring back really and try to right some of the mistakes he did at Nebraska almost. Like he's going back to what he was doing at UCF in his first stint, and foundation-wise, he's trying to build off of, okay, like, trying to rewrite the wrongs and some of the mistakes he made when he was the head coach of Nebraska. Like, he's trying to be a better head coach, and it looked like it during the spring. He's practicing well, he's conditioning well, everything is good there. I think the conditioning is also my second favorite thing. I think they were really well conditioned. I really liked seeing that, and I really liked that they were conditioned. I really liked that they were ready to rock and roll on that end, and that they were good on that end. I liked Steve Cooper as an OC. I really liked him foundationally. I think that is a good. I think it's going to be an interesting hire. We will see how it goes in game. I'm not going to judge it beyond that, but I think for the spring at least, he was foundationally he's forming some good game plans together. So I think he's doing solid on that end. So those are the things that I really liked for UCF overall. Overall, right? So other than that, I think that I think that what I'm a little bit concerned about, honestly, is the quarterbacks. Tavian Jackson and Cam Frencher are the two guys that are battling for the job. You also got Ja'Cory Brown there. Dylan Rizek is entered the portal. He's gone. I think that there's no really clear-cut favorite. I think both have kind of made a little bit of mistakes. I think there's no clear-cut favorite, and there's no leap. There's no gigantic leap. Now, Mackenzie Milton saying that's fine. It's going to take time. He's right. Mackenzie Milton saying it's going to take some time, and it is. It will. It's going to take time entering until the end of the fall camp. That's okay. It happens. I'm not judging it off that. I'm just saying the process of it all, like with, there's no clear cut. They're both looking kind of fuzzy, if that makes sense. That's the right word to say, fuzzy. That's a concern to me. I think the physicality is a concern to me. They're not playing with an edge and physical prowess on their shoulders. I think that is a concern to me as well. They're not playing as physical. I think the transfer portal also is kind of scaring me a little bit. I think Scott Frost has got to do something to get these players to buy in, right? And I think mentally for this team is also a concern for me. Mentality for this team is a concern for me. So I think physically is a concern, but I also think mentally for this team is a concern because the transfer portal is a concern. I think those are the concerns for me, and it's starting to it weighs on my grade for sure. I think spring was okay. I think they look good in some areas. I think they need to develop in some areas. I think they need to develop at the quarterback spot, obviously, because it's a battle. I think receiving-wise, they need to develop. I think on the linebacker spot, they need to develop as well. I think overall, the grade that I give them is a B plus. B minus. B minus as I'm going to my notes. B minus. I think B minus is the grade I give them so far. I think that right now those are the concerns that I got for UCF, and I'm curious to see what the portal is going to look like and what's going to happen with UCF and who's going to enter it. He's got to get these players to buy in, and that's my only concern. I think Scott Frost really needs to set the record straight and say, look, it is business. They're going to enter if they enter, and I understand that. It is just how it is, right? It's just how it is. People are going to have to develop and all that stuff. Understandable, right? They want to go somewhere else. You can't stop that. But the coach also has to do his part to get these players to buy in. Scott Frost has to get these players to buy in because I think what I'm concerned about for UCF is they're going to raid the portal is going to raid those players because there's some talented bright spots on that team that could be a game changer for UCF who could enter the portal and not be there at UCF come fall. So that's what I'm worried about. And I think that's what Scott Frost has to do. He's got to get these players to buy in. So B minus is my grade for UCF in the spring. Take it as you may. I just think that right now that is the overall grade for spring grade for UCF entering the 2025 season. That is my spring result for UCF. Last but not least, Colorado. Coach Prime entering his third year as the Buffaloes head coach, entering the Big 12 in the 2025 season. Head coach Deion Sanders, offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, defensive coordinator Robert Livingston, all back for the Colorado Buffaloes entering the 2025 year. They had their spring game and they're ready to go. And I was kind of mixed, honestly. I saw some things that I liked. I thought physically they look good up front. I think up front they look good physically. They look a lot better and more bolstered on the offensive front of things. They did not have that last year. Last year, it was kind of up and down. Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter, the two bright stars of the team. They ended up losing some games that they weren't supposed to lose. They ended up going to the Alamo Bowl, and they end their season on the Alamo Bowl and in a losing end. Now, they're restarting. Shadur Sanders is off to the NFL. Travis Hunter's off to the NFL. The Heisman winner, Travis Hunter, is off to the NFL. They retired their jerseys. You already know how I feel about that. If you follow me on X at Pigskin_Frenzy on my X account. So, with that, though, seriously, with all that and what I think about their spring overall, and as we dive into their spring now, it was kind of mixed. I think the things that I like about Colorado, let's just go into it and let's talk about it. The things that I liked, the offensive line and the defensive line, I think they're both physical. I think that they bolstered up quite a bit and they worked on those things. Last year, they didn't really have physicality up front, and I think that was the problem for Colorado in a lot of areas. I think they're more physical, which I liked. I really liked that. I liked how physical they were up front. And I think those things right there to me is really, really good, right? So I like that. I think the defense was impressive the whole time, not just on the defensive line, but corners, linebackers. They were the truth. They played really, really good. This defense for Robert Livingston has the chance to be really, really good and are really, really stingy in the Big 12. So to me, that kind of bolstered my grade a little bit. It bolstered my grade a little bit because I had a lower grade, but it bolstered my grade because that defense looked really, really impressive and really sharp. So I liked their defense, honestly. I'm really high on the Buffalo's defense. They looked really, really good today. So to me, I think those are the things that I liked. I think the tight ends for this team are really, really good as well. I really like their tight end group, and I think that Pat Shermer has got some good weapons on the team there. And I think the offense has got some good weapons as well. Those are the things that I liked. Here are the things that I did not like. I don't think Julian Lewis, the five-star quarterback prospect now with Colorado, was taking first-team snaps. You have Caden Salter, graduate transfer for Liberty. So you're thinking a little bit, you're thinking a little bit, okay, like he's Caden Salter should be taking QB1 snaps, right? But he did not. Julian Lewis took QB1 snaps, which is crazy because you got Salter out of the portal. To me, and this is just my opinion, Salter needs to start. And I'm going to sit there and say, you're Julian Lewis, man. He's great. He's a good quarterback. I'm not saying that. He needs to develop. I don't think he's ready yet. And that's just my opinion. I don't think he's ready. And look, everyone's going to sit there and say, oh, Prime knows what he's talking about. He does. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm not saying that at all. I'm a coach. I like Coach Prime. He knows what he's talking about. I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm just saying from what I saw in my own personal thoughts, my personal take, I think Caden Salter is QB1 and he should start week 1. And that's just my thing. I think he was more patient. He was more accurate, and his footwork was a little bit better as well. I think, though, he also didn't play the best either. I think both quarterbacks really didn't show a lot. I don't think Salter didn't show a lot, but I think Salter, when he did play, showed a little bit more than Julian Lewis. That's what I'm getting out of it. I think that Salter should have took QB1 snaps. I think he should just take QB1 snaps in the fall, and I think Salter should start this year over Lewis. I think Lewis has some room to develop, and he has some time to develop. That's all I'm saying. Julian Lewis is going to be the future of this team, and I think he will be a solid quarterback for this football team. He is a good quarterback, and he made some good throws, but he did struggle a little bit overall. That's what was the thing that concerned me. The deep passing is a concern for me. I think what also concerned me a little bit was the discipline on this team. There was a lot of penalties. I think penalties were a discipline on this team for me. They need to quit with the penalties. They had some penalty issues last year. They need to quit with that. I think the penalties are a concern. They need to be more disciplined. I think that is a thing to me that gets under my skin a little bit for Colorado. I think those are the things that I did not like. So overall, with this team, I think they got some stars. I think that they got some things that are got some players on. They have a shot at being an underrated team this year in the Big 12. I think they got some things, though, however, that could hold them back, like the penalties, like the downfield passing. I think they need to work and develop on those. They got some developments, and they got to do it during the spring. I'm sorry, during the fall. Excuse me, fall. The spring's over. During the fall. Overall, my grade for Colorado is a B+. I think a B+ is where I have them stand. I think the B, it was going to be a regular B, but the B+ is what bolstered my grade for them was their defense. I was really impressed with their defense, and I think that they could be in any game with that defense. So B+ for me is what's going to do it for me for Colorado, and that's what I liked about them this spring, and that's what I thought about them this spring. My spring result for Colorado is a B+. I think they need to get those things worked out, the discipline and the deep passing and the development of Julian Lewis at quarterback, and the quarterbacks in general need to be a little bit more developed and ready by week 1 and by fall. That's just my thing. And it's going to take time, and it will come together. It will. You just got to just keep going and keep practicing. But right now, B+ is my grade for Colorado during my spring results. That was my spring result on Colorado. That was my spring results on Arizona State, UCF, BYU, UCF, and Colorado in general. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for Pigskin Frenzy today. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage and some spring football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow about the pages there. You're going to get episode updates and news and highlights from across college football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday. The website's there, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Thursday, we will be back May 1st, Thursday. Hopefully, I'm not wearing a hoodie on May 1st, but this Thursday, we're going into the SEC again. 4 SEC teams. We're talking about Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma. Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma, all 4 SEC teams on tap this Thursday as we dive into their spring results on Thursday. Guys, thank you for tuning in each and every week. 4,900 listeners. 4,900 listeners on Tuesdays and Thursdays for Pigskin Frenzy. Big thank you. 1,000+ following on X. Keeping it coming. We're holding the fort down on Instagram as well. Over 500+ following. We're getting that number up as soon as more and more as we can. We are thankful and blessed that you guys are keeping up to date with us on all social media platforms, on the website, and on all platforms for the podcast each and every week for new episodes Tuesday and Thursdays. We couldn't do this without our Lord Jesus. We love him, and we give him all the praise for delivering this platform to us for talking about college football each and every week, guys. And if you want to come to know Jesus, all you got to do is contact me, man. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. There's the website as well on the contact info, name, email, and question on the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com, to come to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, because he is the Lord. We would not be here without him, and we wouldn't be doing this show without him and have the platforms to do this show without Jesus. So we give him the praise and thank him every day for this show. Guys, we love him. We love you all, and we're praying for you all. We will see you Thursday. So until Thursday, for all 4 SEC teams, Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma, we're talking about that, their spring results on Thursday. Until then, I'm Joel Norris, signing off. We will see you for episode 219 this Thursday. Guys, as always, stay the course.